Hello, and a very warm welcome on behalf of the International Student Support and Integration team at George Brown College. My name is Ali Agha, and I'm one of the international student advisors at George Brown. Today, I will talk about the support services and also briefly give an overview of the study and work permit. Welcome to the session. So what is International Student Support and Integration team does? We verify documents. We have a small team, 3 full-time international student advisors. We have an integration officer. We have a programming coordinator, a student staff, and our manager. And we primarily provide support services, which includes immigration advising. So one of the things that we do is we verify documents. That includes your passport. We can also verify your visas. A temporary resident visa is a counterfoil that is affixed in your passport. We can also tell you the requirements for you to obtain an electronic travel authorization, which is an ETA linked to your passport. We can also verify the study permit and the work permit and some of the conditions and remarks that are present on your permit or on your student permit or the work permit. The conditions can include verifying off-campus work authorization, even on-campus work authorization. We can verify the co-op work permit and tell you if you're allowed to work in an internship or a placement as part of your program at George Brown. And we can also verify a post-graduation work permit and provide you information about making an application for the post-graduation work permit after you finish a program at George Brown. So what is a study permit? It's a very important document that allows foreign nationals to study at a designated learning institution in Canada. Most foreign nationals need a study permit to undertake an academic program in Canada, which is more than 6 months in length. Please make sure you have all the documents you need before you make the application for the study permit, and you should ideally apply before you travel to Canada. Please also note that your study permit is not a visa. It does not let you enter Canada. Please make sure that you also need a visitor visa and an electronic travel authorization linked to your passport in order for you to travel to Canada in addition to the study permit. So this is a sample of the study permit. Generally, when students make the application for the first time outside of Canada while they're in their home country, they are issued what we call a letter of introduction or a port of entry letter. You carry that along with your valid visa sticker in your passport, or if you're from a country that does not require a valid visa sticker in your passport, then you need to have a valid electronic travel authorization, ETA, linked to your passport. And you travel to a port of entry in Canada. It can be a land border, it can be an international airport. Once you arrive at the port of entry, the Canada Border Services Agency officers or the Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada officers will assess your eligibility for the student permit. And if you meet the requirements, they will issue the actual study permit at the point of entry. That document will look like something which is on the screen. So it's going to have your personal information, such as your family name, given name, date of birth, country of birth, nationality, and your travel document number. It will also have additional information, which includes when it was issued, the expiry date that tells you about the validity of your status in Canada. And then at the bottom of the permit, it will have the conditions, which I talked about initially, that the international secretary can verify for you if you have any ambiguity or if you have any questions about one of the conditions or remarks that may be printed on your permit. So what are the eligibility requirements for students to make an initial study permit application from outside of Canada? First and foremost, you need to be accepted to study at a designated learning institution. George Brown College is a designated learning institution, and you also need to prove that you have enough money to pay for your tuition fee. You can cover your living expenses, and you can provide for any family members who may come to Canada with you. And you also have proof that you have return transportation for yourself and any family members who may come to Canada with you. You also need to obey the law, meaning you must not have any criminal record, and for verification purposes, you may need to provide a police certificate from your home country. You must be in good health, and the proof of that will be an immigration medical exam done, and an upfront e-medical report submitted with your study permit application. And lastly, you need to prove to an officer that you will leave Canada when your study permit expires. International students who are issued a study permit may work while they undertake full-time academics in Canada. But please make sure that you can work on or off campus without a work permit. And students can only start working in Canada when their study program has started. So if you arrive in Canada before the program starts, you cannot start working until your classes begin. Your work eligibility is mentioned under the study permit conditions remarks, as I talked about. So if your study permit has a condition printed on it that says may accept employment on or off campus if meeting eligibility criteria as per R186F, V, or W, that means that you are authorized to work in Canada as an international student without the work permit. But you also need to meet eligibility criteria in order for you to do that. So who can work on campus? Students can work on school campus without a work permit if they are a full-time post-secondary student at a public post-secondary school, such as a college or university or CEGEP in Quebec. They must have a valid study permit, and they must have a social insurance number. The social insurance number can only be applied once you enter Canada and you have a valid student permit that lists the condition allowing you to work on campus without a work permit. So R186F. Please note that there's no limit on the number of hours allowed to work on campus. Who can work off campus? Students can work off campus without a work permit if they meet all of these requirements. So first of all, and very important, students need to be full-time in their program at a designated learning institution. So that means that you need to be enrolled in full-time status at the institution. And you're also enrolled in a post-secondary academic, vocational, or professional training program. The program needs to be at least 6 months long and eventually leads to a credential, meaning you need to obtain a degree, diploma, or a certificate. And you have actually started your classes, and you also have a valid social insurance number. So to meet these requirements, and you have a condition printed on your study permit that allows you to work off campus, you can work without a permit, without a work permit. So what are the number of hours allowed to work off campus? During regular school terms and semesters, students can work up to 20 hours per week. If you have a scheduled break in the school year, you can work full time during the scheduled break. Students must be full time both before and after the break to work full time. So you need to be a full time student enrolled at the institution before the break, and you need to return to studies as a full time student after the break. And once again, you cannot work during the break that comes before the start of the very first school semester. Sometimes your program might not have a scheduled break. So in that case, you are only allowed to work up to 20 hours each week. So in certain cases, students would need to complete an externship, internship, or a placement as a part of their program in Canada. And for that, you actually need to have a separate co-op work permit. So please note that this co-op work permit is only needed if you have an externship, internship, placement as a part of your program. And you also need to have a document from the school that confirms that your program requires a work placement or an externship to obtain or meet the requirements for your diploma, degree, or the certificate. And you need to ensure that the placement or internship or externship does not exceed 50% of the entire study program. We always advise students to submit the co-op work permit application as part of their initial study permit application from outside of Canada. And in order for you to do that, as I mentioned, you need a letter from the school that confirms externship as part of your program. This document is generally emailed to all students who have an externship or internship or placement as part of their program within their application package. Some students aren't eligible for a co-op work permit if they're taking one of the following: English or French as a second language. So if you're enrolled in an ESL or FSL program, you're not allowed to obtain a co-op work permit. You are just taking general interest courses or courses to prepare for another study program in Canada. So if this applies to you, you are not eligible for the co-op work permit. So what is the post-graduation work permit program? It's a program in place by IRCC that helps international students who have graduated from an eligible Canadian post-secondary institution to gain valuable Canadian work experience. The post-graduation work permit is an open work permit, meaning you do not need a job offer in order for you to make the application. Please note that the post-graduation work permit can only be obtained once in your life, and it will not be renewed. The only scenario where you might be able to apply for the extension of a post-graduation work permit is if you believe you're supposed to get a longer period of work permit based on the length of your program, but your passport was expiring soon. In that case, once you renew your passport, you can then make an application to renew the post-graduation work permit. In all other cases, the graduation work permit cannot be renewed. Lastly, you can only make the application for the post-graduation work permit once you finish your program and once you've met the requirements to graduate, and you need two documents from the college. One is a proof of graduation or a letter of graduation, and a final transcript that actually the program you finished, the date you were awarded the credential, and the name of the program. As you can see from the table, The length of the post-graduation work permit is determined by the length of the program that you finish at the DLI. So if your program at George Brown was minimum 8 months up to 2 years, chances are you will be issued a post-graduation work permit up to the same length of the program. So for example, if your program was 1 year or 12 months, then you may be issued a post-graduation work permit up to 1 year or 12 months, depending if you meet the eligibility criteria. If your program is 2 years or more, then you may be issued a post-graduation work permit that is valid up to 3 years. So what is the post-graduation work permit eligibility? The eligibility is that your program must be at least 8 months in length. You did not take unscheduled breaks or unauthorized leave from your program. You did not exceed the allowable hours to work off campus, which is 20 hours each week during academic sessions. And you must apply within 90 days of finishing your program if you're inside Canada. But in some cases, students decide to leave Canada, go back to their home country after finishing the program. If that is the case, then you have 180 days to make the post-graduation work permit application from outside of Canada. The number of days, it can be either 90 or 180. You need to count them from the day you finish your program. In case you have any questions, you can always contact Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, IRCC. The number is on your screen. You can also visit their website. So that is the end of my presentation. And on behalf of my team, I thank you all for your time. And we look forward to welcoming you to George Brown College in the near future.